Hey, you guys, welcome to the Rachel Cruze Show. And we have been making our way through the baby steps. So we're going to dive into baby step 3 because now you have your starter emergency fund, baby step 1. You are out of debt now with baby step 2. So we are moving on to baby step 3. So it's kind of fun to look at, baby steps 1 and 2 or kind of felt like for other people, especially baby step 2, right? Like you're paying off other people all of this, and now you move on to baby step 3, and it's for you and your family because it's your fully funded emergency fund. And again, the 7 baby steps, it's our proven plan to help you get in control of your money, out of debt, building wealth, and completely changing your family tree. And baby step 3, it might be one of my favorites because when you work at it, it's a little bit of a marathon feeling because you've just got out of baby step 2, paying off all your debt. But now you have the first time where you're like, okay, this is all my income. We're gonna set a big chunk aside every month to build up this emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. And especially when baby step 3 is finished, that is like the collective, if you can even just put yourself there, thinking that you have no payments and you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved in the bank, it puts you at a totally different position, emotionally, financially, everything. Like there is just something peaceful about completing baby step 3. So that's what we're on. That's what we're going to dive into. And one of the big questions I always get is, okay, Rachel, should it be 3 or 6 months? Like it's this range, and there's a range for a reason. I tend to find that, again, not to be stereotypical, but usually most men are more on like the 3 end mark. Like, oh yeah, 3 months, totally fine. We'll be fine. We'll figure something out if something happens. Women are a little bit more conservative financially, where they'll usually say, 6 months feels safer. I like having an extra buffer just in case something happens. But again, could be different in your household, but that's what I tend to find. Also, I would say if you are on commission or freelancing, if you don't have really a salary that you are banked on, that you know exactly what you're going to be getting, then I tend to lean a little bit more towards the 6 months. And you can even look at your expenses and say, okay, what are the expenses that have to be paid? And if you don't know that, that means you need a budget. Yes. And every dollar is one of the best budgeting tools out there. It's free. If you don't use it, you should be using it. But to be able to really look to see, okay, what bills have to be paid no matter what? And from there, you can kind of do the math. Multiply that by 3. Does that feel good? Multiply it by 4, 5, or 6. And just think, okay, what amount of money sounds good? So looking at your expenses is really important. So once you figure out, okay, we're going to save 3, 4, 5, 6 months, then you're going to have that money in just a traditional savings account or even a money market account. And a lot of people don't like this, especially the math people out there, because they're like, what? It's a lot of money just to be sitting and basically me making nothing on that, where I could put it in the market and actually get a larger return. So what you have to remember with this is that this is insurance. It is not an investment, okay? Remember that. It's insurance. It's not an investment. So when something happens, I want you to be able to get to it quickly, which in the financial space, they call that being liquid, to be able to get to it. So for instance, Winston and I, we have ours in a money market account. I think it's with Ally Bank. I think it's an online bank. It's where we have ours. But you can look around and say, okay, what gives me a little bit more return? I'm okay with you asking that question. That cannot be your main focus. Because again, this is not for investment purposes. This is for if or when something happens in your life. So remember that. So again, a traditional savings account, money market account is great. Go to your local credit union, bank, online, doesn't matter. Just go and you can check those prices. And having it there, you guys, is really important. This is a really important piece of the baby steps because when something happens, I want you to have cash available. I don't want you going back into debt because you don't have cash on you. I don't want you dipping into your 401k if something happens. I want this to be able to be accessible, that you can get when you need it, because like we always say, emergencies are going to happen. It's not an if, it's a when. So let's break down what an emergency is. So an emergency is urgent. Your car breaks down. Yeah, it's urgent. Yep, gotta fix that. A new dress for your sister's wedding. Nope, not urgent, sorry. Unexpected. Your anniversary? Nope. You know when your anniversary is every year. Christmas, birthdays, they're coming. Yep, not unexpected. A long-distance funeral, yes, unexpected. Also, an emergency has to be necessary, okay? So a root canal, yeah, I'd say that's necessary. Taylor Swift tickets, no, not necessary. You can't dip into your emergency fund for that, even though every part of my heart wants to say yes. We have to be adults here, people, and we have to say no. And even when you look back on this year, you guys, look at the pandemic. I know it's something that keeps getting brought up in conversation over and over and over, but it's true. Like, this is something that had so many emergencies in it, right? For people's health, job loss, all of that. So an emergency fund was really, really helpful during that time for those of you that had it. And I love hearing your stories on having an emergency fund, because a lot of you share your victories over in the Rachel Cruze Show community on Facebook. And it's amazing to hear your stories and your life and how this stuff has actually impacted you for the good, which I love hearing. So for example, Lindsay said, y'all, this is why an emergency fund is so important and why it's a must. My newlywed husband and I are on our cross-country honeymoon, towing our camper from New York to California, back to New York. We've had an absolute blast. However, there were a few hiccups along the way. I broke my foot while getting out of the truck in Las Vegas. Ouch. And now we're making our way back to New York and made it to Omaha, Nebraska for a wedding, and then our transmission went out. So not only did we cover my wheelchair expense for my broken foot, we're able to figure out what's next for our truck, camper to get us home. Emergency funds are crucial. Whew, girl, that is quite a honeymoon, but thank goodness for the emergency fund. Dion said, emergency fund, I am here in Dallas and my pipes froze under my 1925 pier and beam house. The repairs were less than the insurance deductible, so I wrote an $800 check without a problem. Peace of mind. Paula Joy said, thankfully, I had an emergency fund to fall back on during the pandemic. I was sick and off work 2 weeks. My job only paid me for one. Didn't sweat it because I listened to Mr. Ramsey. Keep hearing and applying. It works. Love you guys. It's proof. And you know this. Stuff is going to happen. You know, life happens. And it costs money, usually, was what stinks. But having that emergency fund in place turns a crisis into an inconvenience. When you have the money, it's amazing. And if you have to dip into it, that's okay. That's why it's there. It's there to be your buffer. But I would say go back and refund it. Make sure you keep that amount that you want in there. So if something else happens, you're able to take that money out. It does. It just gives you such peace of mind. And please, please don't forget, it is insurance. It's there for when something happens. This is not to get rich. This is not your retirement fund. No, this is there to help catch you when things happen. But the emergency fund, it's one of the steps I love the most. It just gives peace of mind, because it really does, like I always say on here, help you take control of your money and create a life you love.